The Song of America by W.E.B. Du Bois. Digging into background. Being an integral member of the African American community, W.E.B. Du Bois was a raging political activist as well as a successful inspiration to his black community. Du Bois was the only educationally accomplished individual within his family to attend and graduate high school, originating from humble beginnings and plunging directly into the public warfare of segregationist restrictions and majority pushback from the white population. Du Bois participated in campaigns for the advancement of the rights of colored people, such as the Niagara Movement, NAACP, as well as partaking in many communist organizations, admiring their aggressive policies of complete and uncompromising equality across all boards. Personal reading. I doom, I live, I will. I take, I lie, I kill. I rend and rear, and deserts drear, I build and burrow well. With rack and rue, I hound and hew, on founding stones in hell. My temples rise and split the skies, my winged wheels do tell. The woven wonders of my hand, the witchwork of my skill, I writhe, I rave, I chain the slave, I do the deed, I kill. Now what care I for God or lie? I am the great I will. Thesis statement. The many a song sung proclaiming the elitism of the American experience as well as the freedom of individuality, of expression, of expansion, and of religion is simply a scratch record skipping over the bits of torment and misrepresentation endured by the minority races within this pre-Brown versus Board of Education era. Du Bois' theme throughout his melancholy recollection of the current American anthem interjects the sting of reality into the perceived greatness of America and exposes those buried or burrowed social issues, including segregation, lynching, mobs, suppression, and continual stripping of rights undeniably outlined within the new sanctions of the Constitution. His purpose of publication is to expose the greed and power-hungry American society for what it really is, unveiling this melodious mask of perfection we sing about. As Du Bois takes the reader through the back road of American brutality and peels back the layers of concealed social mediocrity, he uses many literary techniques or enhancers to attribute depth and relevance to his political encryption. He invokes symbolism to relate to Americans' recent achievements as well as their equally weighted downfalls, including the overexertion of power upon subsequent minorities. In addition, he incorporates powerful, dismayed diction to shove the ugly truth down disbelieving throats, and tone shifts to acknowledge the grandeur of America and its relative blind spots. Literary enhancement. With great disgust, Du Bois uses highly suggested symbolism to recognize the ineptitudes of racism, bias, and unequal treatment of lawful U.S. citizens based off the color of their skin. Through his inclusion of biblical shaming as well as highlighting the prominence of American ingenuity, he orchestrates the missed potential America is displaying through our inability to see properly through its old, fogged-up lenses. Inquiring and incriminating diction within Du Bois' truthful assessment of the song of America we ignorantly sing, props up the validity of his outrage with the unwavering inequalities adopted by these narrow-minded slave drivers that inhabited this free country, undeserving of the soil that they're too weak-minded to plow for themselves. Tone shifts within the literature balances out the scales of equalizing perspectives, as Du Bois alternates between recognizing the black and white perspectives of the state of American social and cultural inconsistencies. Textual backup. And split the skies, my winged wings do tell. In his first exertion of symbolism, he subtly incorporates the recent accomplishments of the Wright brothers aircraft to annotate the context of the typical white ideal of this boastful American dream. He includes this feat to symbolize the invalidated perception of dominance the U.S. possessed based off their coveted elements of freedom and progressivism, not equally represented within the social customs that contradicted these prized elements. I rend and rear. Upon further research into the definition of rend, the researched definition defines this contextually suitable term as tearing something into two pieces, whereas rear is denoted as the back or subsequent positioning of an object or idea. These two terms, used in relation with one another, perfectly define the constraints of segregation, in which these two classes of race are separated from one another, or rend, while placing white majorities over black minorities in both respect and representation, or rear. I do the deed, I kill. As Du Bois proceeds to annihilate this conceited, lofty perspective, his tone shifts violently from mockery of white arrogance to the recognition of the evils they have created, and the deaths that have resulted from this irreconcilable image of blacks being unworthy of fair treatment. This deed he refers to is denoting the pursuit of crushing any and all black voices, and the kill is the lengths their antagonists are willing to go to assert this undeserved dominance. Literary criticism. One of Du Bois' most contrasting rivals, an activist member of the Ku Klux Klan, as well as a staunch proponent for white supremacy, was Theodore Lothrop Stoddard. As many of Du Bois' poems, including The Song of America, were African American anthems for greater representation and freedoms for the suppressed minority, his entire theory of thinking and process of political activism simply did not sit well with Lothrop. As such, he proceeded to repeatedly voice his brow-furrowing discontent for the African American poetry. One of his many quotations denouncing Du Bois' call for action against racial expression. The overwhelming weight of both historical and scientific evidence shows that only so long as the American people remain white will its institutions, ideals, and culture continue to fit the temperament of its inhabitants and hence continue to endure. Refuted Du Bois' argument against the chains of slavery that bind and withhold the progression of racial equality. His critique against Du Bois' position within The Song of America basically rehashed the combative idea that America's song was lyrical perfection, and the addition of R&B tracks would simply ruin the integrity of the song. W.E.B.'s greatest opponent was an advocate for white dominance and African American suppression, and in turn simply wrote off every aspect of Du Bois' poetic outcry for social evolution.